It's self-swirling. I feel like a genius. Feel free to use that.
They're bold, these pigeons. Look at them.
Oh, I was going to say I've been hooking away, but I can't say that.
Of this absolutely fascinating period of history, in this series, we're going to... No, that's it. Pick one word and let's just run with that.
I'm cutesy and simple.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm just simple.
Yeah, you're just simple.
And he's buried right here. Neil, would you believe... If we're looking for the character who bookends this story, it's summer in the first year of freedom by God's blessing restored. That is a mouthful, and I got it right. Oh no, I don't want it to catch my... Oh no, it won't catch my face. Episode 1, shot 117.
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah, I know. I'm mistaking the...
Just go.
Yeah, okay, so you... Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show. Oh my goodness, we're back.
We are.
And I can't quite comprehend what's happened between the last time we saw you and today.
It feels like 3 months.
Yes, it absolutely feels like 3 months. I mean, and don't worry, all will be revealed over the course of the next 5 months, actually. It's true, I tell you. You shall find out more in just a moment. What a show we have in store for you today, because we have a pattern launch.
We do.
A pattern that I knitted.
Yes.
And that is being released tomorrow. Well, you see, it depends when you watch this.
Depends when you watch this. 1st of March. Let's just say the date.
Yes. So there is, coming in, What's Off Your Needles, there is a pattern launch. And it's the first platinum pattern, Kay's exclusive platinum collection.
Yes.
First platinum pattern of 2025.
Yes.
So that's coming later on in the show, which is superb. We've also got some completely spectacular What's On Your Needles and Hook.
And Hook.
Yes.
Yes, I mean... Oh, I was going to say I've been hooking away, but I can't say that.
Can't say that. And do you know do you know where that comes from? Do you know where that comes from?
No.
That comes from, there was a general in the American Civil War.
Right.
His name was General Hooker.
Oh.
And there used to be lots of ladies.
TJ. Did you used to watch that? TJ
Yes,
Hooker?
yes. Yes, and his sidekick, I'm sure his sidekick was in Greece too.
Yes, I think he was.
Adrian
I can see his
Martinez
face.
or
I can see his
something like
face.
that. Yeah, no, that's not. That won't be his name. It'll be something different. But yes, love TJ Hooker because Heather Locklear was in that as well,
right.
and she used to be married to the guitarist from. In fact, I still think she might be Richie Sambora. My goodness,
lots of interesting information.
This is an 80s.
What were we talking about before that tangent? Oh, General Hooker.
Well, no, hold on. I think we should skip past the general.
Oh, right, okay. That's what... Okay, draw your own conclusions from that.
But that's where the name comes from.
The term comes from.
Yes. Pattern launch, amazing What's On Your Needles and What's On Your Hook. But also, it is, look, it's time to launch another grand historical adventure.
Certainly is.
Yes. Without even realising it, way back in 2020, we started telling the history of Great Britain.
Yeah.
But also, at times, it's been the world.
Yeah.
Because if you think about Rise, Fall of the Monasteries, we were touching on what was going on in the world at the time. And I remember doing a sequence all about Genghis Khan and the beginning of the postal service and all of that. So we started it way back in 2020 with Walking the Dales. Flowed through then to Walking the Wall, Rise, Fall of the Monasteries, England, Castle Nation. And now, the latest grand adventure begins.
Yeah.
It is, of course, Britain, the stately era. And unlike any other series that we have ever filmed, we have produced this as close to the way that, say, in America, HBO would produce something, or in the UK, maybe the BBC would produce something. Because normally what happens is you go and you film the series and then you go and then do all the production work on the series. We've never done that before.
No.
We've always filmed every month. So we've done a little
Yeah.
bit of everything each month.
Yeah.
Bit of research, a bit of pre-production,
Yeah.
filming, post-production, out goes the episode.
Yeah.
And this time, that is not the case.
No.
So this episode that's coming today is most definitely the most sweeping and grandest. There's more locations.
Yeah,
Then
then you
you
can
can-
shake a stick at.
Yes.
I wonder where that saying comes from.
I know. Now that is interesting.
There's more of something than you can shake a stick
Why
at.
would you be shaking a stick at anything?
Why would you be shaking a stick?
I bet somebody
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah,
Or
that's
no, maybe it's complete.
it's an interesting one.
Maybe it's total waffle.
Total waffle.
No, it can't be. It must come.
It must come from somewhere.
Well, it must come from somewhere. If you know, please do comment below because we would love to know. Yes, starting today, 5-episode series. And we're going to chart the course of the stately era, how it began, and we're going to visit some of the wonderful houses, and we're going to sort of learn about the inspirations for... Because I was stunned. There's a stunning realisation in the very first episode of what the first main inspiration for the stately home way of life was.
Yeah, yeah.
And spoiler alert, next episode, next big... reveal.
Oh, jinx.
Yes. And it's my favourite one, next episode. Not my favourite. I don't mean it's my favourite visit. I mean it's my favourite reveal. And these were like, whole new things to me. So what an adventure we're going to have. It's going to be completely spectacular. Oh yes, it's very exciting.
I've seen it.
And
It's fabulous.
doesn't Kay look a joy in pink today?
Do I?
Yeah.
I was watching our editor Jen, she's got a YouTube channel, and she was talking about colour and what suits certain people.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. And it made me go and look at the colour of my veins and all of this business. And actually, if that was right, then pink isn't necessarily my colour.
Yeah.
I'm more blues, greens, but we all know how I feel about pink. But funnily, actually, I always say to Dan, I can't wear pink on my nails. It makes me look weird and old. And I always wear blues and greens. I've got blue on my nails today. So that's
You've got loads of
interesting.
pink jumpers that you look great in.
I've got loads of pink jumpers. Maybe it's the shade of pink. Maybe there's certain shades that wouldn't be good on me.
Or
I don't
maybe-
even know.
Or maybe
Has
it's
anybody
not.
looked into the colour thing and what suits them? It's an interesting topic, I think.
It's a very interesting topic, but I suppose like anything in life, maybe it's not, for want of a better phrase, black and white. Maybe
No.
there's some grey areas.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
that if this thing is telling you that pink isn't your colour, well, I can tell it that it's wrong.
I think it's maybe down to types of colour. So it might be that a pastel pink doesn't suit me, but a brighter, more vivid pink does.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say.
Nuances.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think like anything
Interesting.
in life, there are always nuances.
Mm.
Neil, my goodness, what we had to be to start working in the way that we're working now, because this all started really with our advent calendar last year.
Yeah.
Because to film a whole series, you have to be super organised.
You do.
I mean, like insanely organised.
Forward planning gone mad.
Now, that picks up on a really interesting point, because Kay and I were talking just the other day. There's positives and negatives to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because we were talking the other day, we were trying to plan forward, and I know this sounds crazy, but this is the way that we've always had to work, because we do have to think about next Christmas, this Christmas. So Kay started thinking about next Christmas when last Christmas... You were already thinking about it before the new year had turned.
Yeah, this Christmas coming.
Yes.
Yes. Half designed the project. I know what the theme is. We know what we're doing.
That is for our Baker Bears Advent calendar.
Yes, for the Advent calendar this year. Oh, I'm so excited. Look,
So-
I can't get excited about Advent
no.
in February.
So we're forward planning for the year the other day, and
Yeah.
when you start to get like a really long way forward, it just becomes a total nightmare. We were
Yeah.
trying to slot certain things into place, weren't we? And it was an absolute disaster.
It was, yeah. We had to jiggle some stuff around.
So
and
there's some definite challenges with forward planning, but this is the cool thing about forward planning is it creates mental space where creativity flows into. Because what did you just say to me the other day?
I'd thought of what the theme was going to be for Advent 2026.
But not only that,
How crazy is that?
not only that, in the process of our forward planning, you also came up with that idea for next year's K main show.
Yes.
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 And things like this have never really happened with us before.
No.
It's only happening. The reason why, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, and I'd certainly be interested to know. Because the reason why I'm saying this is I think it's always interesting to know and to hear experiences of other people, certainly when it comes to things like planning. Because if you're one of those people that's a little disorganised, the wrong thing. We certainly weren't disorganised, but it was like...
It was smaller, it was less sort of...
it was small chunks of organisation.
Less forward-looking.
And you would
was
get
like,
to the end.
What are we doing the next month or two?
Yeah, or the next season maybe.
Yeah.
And now to be working a year in advance, what it does is it just means that you can focus more on getting the current year done really well.
Yeah.
And also you can be thinking really creatively.
Yeah, it does take the pressure off, especially when you get closer to that time. You know, for example, for our advent calendar, really, I have to start with the design many, many months before, because the design process takes some time, and then the sample knitting takes some time, and then the filming takes some time, and that's all got to be done before, you know, well before the 1st of December.
And it all has to be done in an order too.
It all has to be done in an order. And it all has to be edited already, you know, for the 1st of December. So you do have to do these things well in advance. And I actually really enjoy that, because I very often like doing things out of season. I really enjoy doing that, because once you're in the season, I'm kind of past it. Do you know what I mean? So doing things well in advance really works for me.
Yeah, and I think as well that the more time you have to think about a theme, certainly, you know, you mentioned the advent calendar again. If you have time to think about a theme, it's the same though with the summer of stitching that we do. If you've got time to think about the theme, that gives you more time to be really exciting and creative with any designs or courses that might be running through the, you know, the period. Because, you know, when you take away that sort of worry about the future, you then, again, like just today, was it? Yeah, you were coming up today with great ideas for this year's Summer of Stitching filming.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it just, I think the lesson from all of this, certainly from our point of view, is once you get the ball rolling with the forward thinking, if you keep the ball rolling, life feels way, way better. Yeah. And you feel like you're achieving a whole lot more.
Yeah, I don't ever feel like we'd get into a position where things are a bit manic and a bit panicky and we've not, you know, this is not done in time. Because if you're doing it far enough in advance, you've always got the space.
Yeah.
For adjustments and, you know.
Some people might be watching thinking, well, how does this apply to my life? Well, I'll tell you. The way that it has applied to our life, taking it out of a working environment and putting it into a life environment, is the way that we now do our shopping. Because we didn't really enjoy, you've never really enjoyed going around the supermarket. And it was always a chore for me. Yeah. But the challenge of trying to do it online just seemed huge. Because you're so used to walking around and thinking, oh, well, we've just run out of this. Right, I'll buy this. Yeah. But over the course of the last year or so, we've got to a point now with online ordering where I can order up to a month in advance. Yeah. And what that does is it creates like this wonderful feeling in that, well, do you know what? If I can't do it next week or if there's a problem, it doesn't matter because it's already done. Yeah,
I think you can apply it to lots of areas of your life, can't you? And at the end of the day, for me, it's... I think the more organised you are, I think the less stressful your life can be.
The freer your brain is.
Yeah.
It's relaxed.
All of those sort of tedious life tasks like shopping, like housework, for example. Yeah. You know, I'm trying to be really organised with my housework and I slot a little bit in every day rather than, you know, I loathe having to just blitz the house on one day. It's just horrendous. But if you slot in a little bit every day, and I put it in my planner and I work out what needs doing each day. It might take you 20 minutes, half an hour each day. But then, you know that come the weekend, you've not got that massive amount of housework to do.
Yeah.
So you can apply it to all aspects of your life. And
it's been a boon for us.
I think
absolutely.
Some people are naturally organised, aren't they? And some people naturally are not. So it can be more difficult for some people.
Well, we certainly weren't as organised as we are now. So you can.
I think you can. Absolutely,
leopards
you can
change spots.
Yeah. Get yourself a planner and just sort of sit down and just work out all the things you have to do in a week, for example, whether that's family related, children related, housework related, whatever it is, and just split it all down and slot it into where it fits for you. And I think it just makes everything much less stressful. Yeah.
And it's freed up little bits of time that we never realised we had. And we've been watching Only Murders in the Building on Disney Plus, which we've been really enjoying. First 2 seasons probably the most.
Yeah.
The 4th season we're just getting going with, so we'll see how that goes. I think it's got more potential, the 4th season, than the 3rd season.
Yeah, the 3rd season I wasn't mad on. I think what happened was it obviously got popular, and then they started throwing stars at it. So Meryl Streep's in it and Paul Rudd's in it, and
I'm not sure that they were the problem. I think the problem was the musical element.
Oh, I didn't like the 3rd. If you've watched it, the 3rd season has got this musical element, this theatre musical element of it, and it just irritated me. The end musical actually looked like it was pretty good, I've got to say, but it was just the sort of running theme through it just really annoyed me for whatever reason.
It's different to previous ones, but it feels, to me, it feels like an old-fashioned type of programme.
It does. It's very funny. Yeah, because Martin Short and Steve Martin are, they're very, very funny together, and it's really nice to see lots of people who are not in their youth. It's full of people who are, a little bit older, and
slightly
I think
more
that's
experienced.
More experienced. I think that's brilliant. Meryl Streep was obviously brilliant.
Yeah. That's a great big load of lovely
a lot of waffle at the beginning there, wasn't it?
So I think it's high time that we had a look at some of the things that we've been working on.
Yes.
And it starts with a bit of hooking. So Kay Jones, what's on your hook?
Yes, I have been crocheting like a demon, right? So do you know my crochet blanket that I've shown a couple of times? I'm doing granny squares in all of the brightest colours in the world. And what had happened was, right, my interest had sort of waned a little bit and I couldn't figure out why. And then I realised what it was because I didn't really have a plan. What I was doing was I was just crocheting squares. Here's some of them. So this is just plain granny squares, but I'm holding finger and weight double and I'm using 20 grams. So you're effectively crocheting 10 grams, if you know what I mean, in terms of length. But it's 20 grams in total. So all of these are made out of mini skeins, which is brilliant. So here's one, for example, and I'm just using really, really bright colours. Like, whoa, look at this pink. Because it's even brighter than mine. It makes my top look positively dull. It's so neon pink. So I've got all of these. I did these 2 at Christmas. You can probably tell why. So we've got a red one and then this lovely red and green one. And then we've got purple. That one's beautiful. And then this one, I think, is literally brighter than the sun. Look at this, is like the highlighter yellow. Gosh, I mean, that is so in your face, isn't it? It's not. So, yeah, I've just been crocheting these granny squares and I just thought I'm just going to crochet them until I've got enough and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do to join them and the order. And I tried a couple of times laying them all out and trying to decide how I was going to place them. And nothing quite looked right. And then I struck on an idea. I couldn't sleep one night. And then suddenly I started thinking about this blanket. Thinking about things tends to sort of then send me to sleep for whatever reason. Thinking about things where it's a bit puzzling sends me to sleep. So I started thinking about this blanket and I thought, I know what I'm going to do. So what I'm doing, and I've started to join it.
Thinking about puzzling things sends you to sleep.
Kind of, yeah.
You should try and do what Joey does when Well, I can't remember what emotion he's trying to portray in Friends.
Oh, right,
but
yeah.
he says, whenever I try and divide 168 by...
Yeah, maths wouldn't work for me. I'm not a mathematician at all. But yeah, it's that kind of a thing.
That is a brilliant idea. That is such a brilliant idea. When you're trying to get to sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe that would really work.
Well, it always works for me if I've got like some design problem or just something that's been bothering me. If I just start thinking about it, quite often I come up with a solution. And I wonder if it's just because you've got nothing else to do in that moment, have you? You know, you're just lying there trying to get to sleep, and it just sort of works for me. And I thought about this and then fell asleep. So,
do you remember what I do?
Is it lyrics of something or?
Well, I do lyrics sometimes, but what I also do is I play through in my head, note for note, the overture from Jesus Christ Superstar. And
Sounds fun.
And if I get a bit wrong, I have to go back and start again from the beginning.
Oh, Dan's going to teach me how to sing one of my most favourite songs, and it's in that that rock opera, isn't it? It's not. I won't class it as musical. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm grouping them. So I'm taking 4 similar sort of colours. So, I mean, I'll show you where I'm up to because I've joined and I've started making the actual blanket itself. So you'll understand what I mean if I show you. So here's where I'm up to. Oh, look. So I've got 2 blocks, let's call them, joined together. So this orangey peachy one was the first one I did. So I just took 4 of my squares that all kind of are in the same colour family, if you like. And then I did join as you go. So the way that I did that was I just took one of these squares and then I bordered it all the way around with the white. And then you then start adding the other ones. So then you work like one side of the next one and then start joining it to this one and work my way round. So then I had a block of 4, and then what I decided to do, I wanted a thicker joining bit in the middle here. Can you see this white section is much thicker? So it'll be like that, you'll see like a cross here where you've got the 4, and then they'll all have thicker borders around. So I completed the 4, and then when I finished joining the 4th one, I then just carried on and did another 2 rounds for this first block. And then I started on the next one, which are these greens and blues, which is beautiful, isn't it? Oh, so pretty. So I did the same thing. I joined these 4 first of all. And then for this one, I did 1 round complete after I'd done that. And then you're taking this square and joining it to this one like you would with 2 granny squares. So I then worked one side and then joined it to this one. I hope that all makes sense. Anybody who crochets and has done join as you go hopefully will understand. The only problematic area is, do you know where you've joined like 2 squares here and then you're working another round around? It's bridging that gap here in the 2 corners because you have like 2 corner bits here and here and you've got to bridge that gap here. And doing just 3 you can't really do 3 trebles like normal because you've got 2 spaces, 2 corner spaces here. So what I do, and I always do it this way and it works really well, is I do 1 treble and then I work would it be called a treble decrease? So you do kind of like half a treble and you leave like 2 loops on the hook, and then you go over to the other corner space, do the other half a treble, and then you sort of pull your hook through 3 loops, I think it is, and it's kind of like a decrease, isn't it? And then I do another treble in that side. So you've got a treble decrease over the gap, treble. Hope that makes sense. And then when you come round again, you can just do a normal treble in those 2 spaces and it just looks lovely. So yeah, that was really good. So yeah, I'm just now joining them. So this is going to be for Bryony, and I think I'm going to do it size-wise. I think I'm going to do it 3 blocks by 4 blocks. So that's 12 of these big blocks altogether, is it? 3, 6, 9, 12, yes. So then how many individual squares is that? 12 to 48, I think.
Try and work that out at night, you'll fall asleep.
I know, I think it's 48, isn't it? So I'm now going to be working on the next one to add along. So it's going to go here next to the blue one. And I think I'm going to do yellows next. I think that'll look nice. So I've actually only got one yellow one completed, which is this massively lurid one. But I do have another mini from, I don't know where this one was from, but this one here is Somerset Yarns and it's called Bikini. So it's this same bright yellow with some colours in. So I've got that one. And then I think I might go a little bit limey green because that would look nice together. This was just out of my stash. I don't know where it's from, but that will go nicely. And then I've also got this one from Woolly Mama, which is yellows and a little bit of blue, but I think they will all look nice together. So yeah, I'm just working my way through now, making more grannies until I've got enough. I was looking at the colours I've already got, and there are some squares which are a little bit of a problem in terms of where I would place them. Like this beautiful one is green and pink. So where would you place that? Because I think, you see, if I put it with another pink, it somehow, I don't know, does it read as pink? Does it sort of go? It certainly wouldn't have gone in this green one. I mean, look, when I put it here, it does read more pink, doesn't it, than green, definitely. So that's telling me, I think, that I could put these two together. And then I did wonder whether to have reds with those as well, but that one is just not right, is it? But then I could, you see, I don't think I could put reds with those. So I think reds are going to have their own thing. And then pinks are going to have their own thing. But then I've got this one, which is sort of a variegated, but is pink. But then does that go with those three? I mean, you could probably... Or do I just save all of these ones which are variegated and let them have their own block, you know, without it actually having a specific colour theme? But then would that look weird? These are all the thoughts that go on in my head. So somehow I will place these, like this one is green and orange. But I guess it's what colour does it read from a distance? See, what would it have looked like, for example, here? Would that have fit there? Oh, I mean, it probably would. So maybe that one reads green. Anyway, these are all thoughts that I will cross that bridge when I get to. But for now, I'm just going to work my way through a few more grannies and get that yellow block in. And it took me, you know, from just having 4 granny squares to a completed block. I got that done in like an afternoon. It didn't really take me that long at all. So I did one day, and then I did and joined the next one the next day. So it doesn't actually take that long once I've got the 4 squares. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and it's a nice weight. I think when it's finished, it's going to be a really nice weight. And I'm joining using Cascade Heritage, and the colour number is 5682. One thing to say about this Cascade Heritage, right, I've mentioned this before, but they changed the country that this is produced in. I think there was a problem in the factory. I don't know if there was a fire or something. I know there was some kind of problem, so they changed production, and they now, I believe this is the new one, they're now made in India. And I had a yarn organised yesterday. It's all looking beautiful now, but I found a few skeins that were older, and they weren't from India. They were produced in China. It's not quite the same, I'll be honest. I don't feel like it's quite the same. It's perfectly fine for doing this, but it somehow feels a bit, it's maybe not got as much body or something. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on, because I just used Cascade Heritage, didn't I, for my Sweetie socks, and that was an older skein and it was beautiful and I absolutely loved it. This doesn't quite have the same feel, the newer stuff. That's just another random thought that came into my head. But in terms of using it for this, it's perfect because it's that bright white. which is what I wanted. I know some people, when they saw this, said, oh, I'd join it in black, so it looked like stained glass. And I think that would look lovely, but that's just not, I don't know, it's not really my aesthetic. And plus, I didn't want to work with black for all that time because it's tricky yarn colour, isn't it? Whereas white, I think it's just a happy, you know, it looks really, really happy and bright, and it keeps that bright theme going, and I think it just looks great against white. So, but, you know, use what, you know, you would use whatever you wanted to use, and that's cool, isn't it? So, yeah, so I'm loving that, and I'm using a 3.75mm hook. This is a Clover Amore, which are the only hooks I use these days. I really love these. I have tried using the tulip ones, but I find that the handly bit, it's harder on a tulip. This has got a bit of smoosh factor. It's more of a rubbery sort of feel, whereas the tulip one is definitely a harder plastic. So yeah, I prefer these. So yeah, that's my lovely crochet blanket, and I'm going to carry on working on that with the hope that I can get it finished for September, but whenever it's done, we'll be fine, won't it? So Dan Jones, what's on your needles?
I'm knitting on my Albion.
Ooh,
it's
lovely.
the jumper with the Cascade 220 by Michelle Wong, and it's lovely. I finished the first repeat, so the sort of lower section of the jumper, now working into the second section. And, you know, it feels like it's coming together now more, which is really good. I think once you get into the second repeat of something, certainly when it's a big repeat, you can start to sort of get an idea on, you know, what it's going to be like. But, I mean, the thing...
It's beautiful.
When you see that, do you think fisherman?
I do.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, I do.
I think it definitely fits the vibe, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, initially... I wasn't getting it too much.
Oh, I love that.
But now I do think it is, as you get into that second repeat, you can start to feel it coming together a little bit more. And I'm excited to get through this actually and sort of see it start to take the shape of a jumper. Because I think at the moment there's an element of it to me. Now, I have total faith in Michelle Wong because I think her designs are really sort of chic and cool. Mm-hmm. But right now it feels a tiny bit like something maybe a grandpa might wear.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to when I finish, because
I don't think so.
if you look at the design, then, you know, not that that's no criticism to grandpa jumpers at all. But, you know, obviously I set out to create, well, I'm not creative, I'm knitting someone's pattern. I set out to knit something which would, you know, take me one step closer to, you know, the Gansey type. And I do feel more confident now after getting into that next bit, looking at what happens in the rest of the design, because the knits and pearls go away. And, you know,
do they?
Yeah, and the knits and pearls go away at the top.
Oh.
And I need to just double check what's going on.
See, that will give it more of a Gansey feel.
Yeah.
Have you got a photo?
I do, but it's hard to see.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I have a feeling that they disappear in the middle too.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah, so I think you get halfway through, but I mean, I'll need to check, you know, the pattern. It looks to me like you get halfway through the first bit of the...
Yeah, it does look like
and
that.
then you're just knitting plain, but then you've got there's a line that separates up
and the
each,
sleeves are
each
plain.
segment. Yeah, I think having the sleeves plain, I think, is really key, because I think that's what gives things the grandpa vibe. If you've got, you know...
This doesn't look like a grandpa jumper.
No, that doesn't, but this does.
Right. It certainly doesn't when he's finished.
No, absolutely. Because I think the other thing that will happen
He's about 30 and he looks cool in it.
Yeah.
Well, you will look cool in it.
Yeah, I think I
was
should
just
look okay.
proving the point by saying about that dude.
Yeah. And I think the plain bits will flatten out the whole thing, because right at the moment it's very sort of, because of the knits and pearls, it's very sort of...
Oh, yeah, it will really benefit from when it's blocked.
Yeah.
I mean, look how far out that's going to stretch when it's blocked.
Also, then knitting flat, I think, too, will make it just feel like a different thing.
Oh, is that what happens? You knit, yes. So when you get to the sleeves, you knit the front and then the back.
No, I'm not sure about that. I didn't mean to say flat. I meant plain stitch. You know,
plain stitch. Stocking stitch.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because every different corner of the world calls it something different. I get completely confused.
Not flat.
No.
But, okay.
I just get
Stocking
confused.
stitch.
We should just have one word for things.
I know. Why is it? It's always been stocking stitch here. So why is it stockinette, for example, in the US? I don't know why things change.
Let's just pick one word and go with that.
Well, I call
don't
it
care
stocking stitch because
if
that's
you call
just
it,
what it's always been for me.
If you
because
call
it's
it
the
vestibule,
stitch
just
was
pick a
used
word.
to make stockings.
Yes. So anyway, I'm loving knitting my Albion. It's great fun. And the yarn
It's
is great.
beautiful.
It's Cascade 220.
That
First time I've
rib.
knitted.
That rib is a joyous thing. It's so neat.
It's a bit different to the one I did before.
I know. Let me just hold. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful?
Says everything, doesn't it, about that other yarn?
Oh, look how the colour changes with the light.
Doesn't it, though, when you think, because it was the rib to this that I knitted
know.
with that other...
The other yarn, the one
Yeah.
I speak of. I know.
And it was dreadful.
Yeah, it was. This is beautiful.
You shouldn't have to change your
I love
technique
it. I love it.
For the yarn you're working with.
No. Absolutely not.
Not when
no.
it comes to something like that.
That yarn,
Yes, you might...
I think because it had a lot of texture, it was just difficult to make it look neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, this is beautiful.
All fun.
I can't wait
Great
to see
project.
you in that. I think
what
it's just
else
so lovely.
is on your needles?
Well, I need a sock blocker. Let me just extricate one. Is that the right word?
I'm guessing it's a sock then that you've got to show.
I've got a sock to show you. So it's a new pair of socks, and I started these socks when we were away filming. So when we went away, actually, I dilemma-sized, not a word, but I had a bit of a dilemma on what to take. And in the end, I knew that we were going to be super busy. So in the end, I thought, you know what, less is more. So actually, all I took away with me was 2 pairs of socks and a hat, and I never cast the hat on, and I still haven't yet, because I just haven't found the time. So all I worked on while we were away was 2 legs on 2 different socks. But it was fine because it was just perfect and it's what I needed. I just needed something really simple at the end of the day just to go round and round. So this was one of the socks that I worked on while we were away. And I cast this on, I think on the 2nd or 3rd day we were there, and I've finished a sock and I've started the 2nd. So the yarn, I just wanted to take something bright and fun and happy that would be nice to knit. I didn't have any plans on whether these were going to be a pair for me or for Bryony or whatever. So I just chose a skein from my stash with my mantra for this year, which is to knit through my Pixie yarn because I just have to. I was about to say I can't buy any more, and actually I've got another skein on the way, but there's a reason for that. It looks like Bryony's giraffe coffee, so I had to have a full skein to knit her socks. Look, whatever. I need to get some of these beautiful skeins knitted up. So this one I bought sometime last year, and it was so bright and fun, I had to use it. So yeah, it's Pixie yarn, and this colour is called In Your Face. Don't you love that? And let me tell you, it is completely in your face. So this is what it looks like in the skein. Oh my goodness, it's just so glorious. Look at this. Is that not just so fun? It's got all of the colours in. And I had no idea how this would knit up, because there's always a risk, isn't there? There's always a risk when it's these colours where you've got sort of blocks of colours. But I'm absolutely loving how it's knitting up. It is knitting up in a swirly spiral, but it looks fantastic. So here is the first sock. Oh my goodness, it's so fun. So here we go. Look at that. So what's happened is doing this, it just looks like stripes actually, doesn't it? It doesn't even it doesn't lean too much, if you know what I mean. It just looks brilliant. So the sort of pinks and purples and oranges are banding together, and then the greens and blues and yellows are in a little band of their own, and it just looks so lovely. So what I did, but when I saw it was doing this, I decided to put in my butterfly heel, because it just works perfectly with self-striping, or in this case self-swirling. Oh my gosh, I just made up a term. It's self-swirling. I feel like a genius. Feel free to use that. So yes, it's self-swirling yarn, and I got this bright pink out of my stash. I don't know, I think I bought a set recently from Botanical Yarn, and it was like bright pinks and peaches, a little mini skein set, and I think this came from there. And I was going to put this into the crochet blanket, but I had another mini virtually identical, so I was able to use it in this sock, which is a joy. So yeah, because I was away and I just wanted to knit round and round, I ended up doing a 50 round leg, which is quite long for me. So these are going to be for Bryony, because she saw the yarn and she was like, oh yeah, I want those, and that's fine. So we did 50 rounds on the leg, and I just did 12 rounds on the cuff. I'm really liking just a little cuff at the moment, and Bryony doesn't care one way or the other. So just 12 rounds and then 50 rounds for the leg, butterfly heel, and then down the foot and an umbrella toe. And it's just fantastic. So I cast on the second one just yesterday, just last night, and I've just finished the rib. So I've just got the rib. I'm using 2.5mm Addy, I think they're called turbos or lace. Addy lace feels right, doesn't it? Addy lace, yeah, magic loop. And 2.5mm, I have knit socks using 2.5mm for quite some time, because I get a gauge which is very similar to what a lot of people get using 2.25. So I think I'm I don't think I'm a very tight knitter, but I think I'm more edgy in that way. I get about 8.5 inches to a stitch. That would be weird. 8.5 stitches to an inch. So it's a really good gauge, and that is sort of a typical gauge, isn't it, for a 2.25mm, between sort of 8 and 9 per inch, I would say. So yeah, I've got the rib on the go, and I want to get these done actually fairly quickly if I can, because I've now got plans for another pair for Bryony, because she's become re-obsessed with a particular TV show, and I want to do some scrappy socks. So I won't tell you what that is, I'll save that for next time, but that'll be really fun. But really enjoying these socks, and I seem to be just enjoying at the moment just plain vanilla socks with this simple heel, you know, not having to think about any gusset decreases or anything like that. And isn't knitting brilliant for being able to accommodate, you know, whatever frame of mind you're in? I think that's just fantastic. And this is where, like, having loads of projects on the go really pays off, because you can just choose whichever one suits your particular mood at that time, can't you, and your particular needs at that time. I think that's just brilliant.
Look at this. It's perfect timing, because, of course, what's off your needles, we're going to be launching the Pemberley cowl. I said the lovely words. This was the first of the colourwork cowls which Kay designed, and she designed it. I think you designed this one for me as well, that you ended up putting out as a pattern. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. The Sweetheart cowl.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. All of these colourwork cowls were just cowls I designed for you.
And then the Sweetheart one went on.
Yeah.
This is the Sweetheart cowl. So it's the first one. The first, you know, colourwork cowl that Kay designed for me, because I was really keen to, you know, try and perfect my colourwork skills. And she put in a really challenging section, which are these sort of spots here. And the first time I did it, it was really bad. And I showed this last time. I was sort of part way through, and it was looking really good. And I think that looks really good.
It's way better than your last one.
Yeah, it's way, way better. Blocked, that's going to look close to perfect.
Yeah.
Great opening section. And then now into a really complicated bit.
Yeah.
There's lots of hearts going on, because this is based on Sweetheart Abbey, which is in the southwest of Scotland. It's a beautiful place.
It is.
And the yarn you dyed...
I dyed that orangey sort of colour.
Well, it's definitely salmon, isn't it, that?
Don't
you think?
No, that's
that looks
not
like
salmon.
a lovely fresh salmon to me.
No, I don't think that's salmon.
Maybe it's the black knocking it back in the...
That's not salmon pink, is it? It's more tangerine, I would say. It needs to be more pink for a salmon.
Yeah. But it's fun anyway. It's great fun. And really sort of... And it's not intense. But you've got to concentrate.
Yeah, it's quite an involved colour work, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and just
And that's what you wanted to be challenged with your colour work.
with this one, I really wanted to be challenged. Yeah.
I think isn't it lovely?
Yeah.
Doing a cowl, I think, is a brilliant way to practice your colour work. I think these two colours are just amazing.
And I can't wait to finish knitting this one because this is for our daughter Bryony.
This is for Bryony.
It's going to be so fun seeing her wearing it.
I know, she'll love this.
Especially now that she goes to her knitting group.
Oh, yes, she does. She goes to a knit and natter at university, and she cross stitches, and they said, that's fine, but she's the only one there that cross stitches. That's hard to say. Most people crochet, a couple of people knit, and then she does cross stitching. But it's just a nice social thing. She goes once a week for a couple of hours, and she really enjoys it. But this, I think, is very Halloween-y. So it's just lovely. I absolutely love it. You've done such a good job, actually, with those dots.
Well, you learn, I suppose, when you knit through any section, if you try and... Well, I certainly try and learn and look at what works, look at what doesn't work. And I took note very much last time when I did it first time through and learnt a lot. It was better the second time. And then when I came back to this, I was really thinking, and it's a couple of years since I knitted it, I was really thinking, right, what did I learn? What do I need to do? Done those things, and it's coming out way, way, way better, which is just great. So that is the Sweetheart Kel.
Okay, the last thing I've got to show you is another pair of socks, and it's my strawberry socks that I was working on because I finished one and I've got the second one on the go, but I'll show you the finished one. These were... Was this the other thing? No, this wasn't the other thing I took away because this involves a bit of a pattern. I cast on another new pair of socks when I was away, and I'll show you those next time. This is my short and sweet pattern, which was part of our Knitty U from 2020, and I've knit it up in strawberry colours a couple of times for Bryony, and I think I might be able to keep this pair for myself, actually. She's not mentioned that she wants one, as she is still wearing the pair that I made last year. So fingers crossed I can add these to my sock stash. But here's a finished sock. Oh, in these lovely strawberry colours. So I dyed this yarn, and I have dyed these yarns on the show here. Oh, gosh, it's a couple of years ago, I think, now that I did it. Well, I showed you how to get this, particularly the strawberry colour is quite specific. And then this lovely leaf green, which is, I think it's perfect for a strawberry leaf. And the pattern's got little eyelets all over it, which look like strawberry seeds. You could interpret them as melon seeds. It could be watermelon. If you changed this shade for a watermelon, I feel like a watermelon's a bit pinker, maybe, then this is more sort of red leaning. And then somebody said, you could do one that's a carrot. That's sort of fun, isn't it? If you did orange, it would look like a carrot. And then I was also thinking if you did it in like a deep purpley colour, it would be blackberries, wouldn't it? Because they also have the little seeds, and that would be beautiful. So there's lots of options, I think, in terms of colours for these. And I think I'm going to release this as a pattern. I spoke all about this last time, so I won't go into, the whys and wherefores, but in terms of when this would come out, I really want to time it so that it's that perfect moment for strawberries in this country, which for me, the start of the strawberry season is May. You can probably get them before then, but I think the best ones start in May. And it's my birthday in May, so that kind of all ties in. So this might be a little birthday pattern launch when all the strawberries are out and we can all just really enjoy strawberries and cast on some socks and get into that kind of summery mood, because hopefully we'll be feeling a bit summery by then. So yeah, there's one sock all done and just looking lovely. I love all the tones in this yarn. Really, really pretty. And I started the second one. So I've just got the rib done. I've got my little leaf rib all done. So I'm ready now to start working down the leg. So yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting those, but I'm probably going to take my time with the second one now, because I'm not in any huge rush to get the pattern out. So you might not see this again for a little bit. Probably when, maybe April time, when we're getting ready to sort out the pattern and get it released. But that's not long, is it? It's March in a couple of days. gosh, I mean, it's not long at all. So that's my strawberry socks, which I'm very much enjoying.
I must just pause for a moment, actually, to say you must listen to our radio show next week, because we're going to be doing one about Amazon.
Oh, my goodness.
Because...
We don't mean the river, although that would be fun.
That's the episode after. It's not. Just, it picks up on that creativity, free, lovely headspace feel, because we decided to back off from Amazon in a big way. And funnily enough, what spurred us on, I mean, a couple of things have spurred us on. The service has just got worse and worse here for us. And also getting deliveries at getting to 8 and 9 o'clock at night is just...
And do they just throw them on the doorstep as well?
Yeah, and then walk away. But the thing that tipped us over the edge was they're going to be trialling drone deliveries.
Yeah.
And that's what made us just think this is just not for us.
It's nuts.
And so we're going to do a whole radio show episode about this. But what has been a totally unexpected free feeling is not having to worry about a knock at the door when you're winding down
at the end of the day. Because inevitably they always used to come really late in the day, and I don't know why that is. Maybe that's just for our area. It's mad because we've got a massive, absolutely massive Amazon distribution centre, which is fairly new, about 2 miles from us here.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the majority of our deliveries weren't coming from there.
No, they come from Leeds.
Which is like a good distance away from us.
Which is absolutely crazy. So
which is probably the reason why the deliveries were coming so late.
Yeah.
So we've done this since the start of the year, and I can't begin to tell you how nice it is.
It's amazing.
At the end of the day. There's two things. Number one is the not having to think, I've got to keep my ears open because the door's going to go. And I need to go answer it, otherwise the package will be left potentially outside in the rain or to be stolen. But the second thing is the lack of packaging now.
Yeah. Because we have to recycle it all, obviously, and it's the amount of work involved in, because they always send things in boxes which are 10 times bigger than is required. Yeah. So it's the flattening down and the storing and then recycling when the bin men come, and all of that time that takes. Yeah. But it's also, I feel like we're saving money because we're not doing that, I'll just order it from Amazon. And then quite often I'll forget that I've ordered something, because it's just so easy. And I'm like, why did I even order that?
And the other really big
purchases
thing,
are much more deliberate.
Well, they're more deliberate, and you're supporting local shops.
Absolutely.
So you're
That's
actually
the biggest thing.
You're supporting your local community.
Because so far, everything that would normally have ordered from Amazon, we've just sourced somewhere else. Yeah. And it's not been a problem at all.
And even when I had to buy something online, instead of buying it through Amazon, I went directly to the company that I get it from. I got it cheaper. I got it delivered in a better way. Yeah. And I felt more sort of at ease with the whole process, because I know that when it was a pair of running shoes, inevitably when I need to go back to them, it's already there and set up. So I think sometimes, you order from Amazon because you think, it's just easy.
It's just easy.
Once you've set up the channels for the places, so whether it be local shop or if you can't buy it locally, you're going direct to whoever. Once it's there, it's easy to go back. So it has been
a revelation, and I needed some citric acid for dyeing, and normally I'd just get that from Amazon. But Ocado stocks citric acid. So
that's where how funny is that? We mentioned earlier on in the show our weekly grocery shop. They're the people who bring us our weekly grocery shop, and you just get it with that.
Because it's used in food making, so, it's a product there. So I think that, we will, like you said, we will talk in depth about this. Next week, but it's just been amazing not using them. It's like this huge weight is lifted, and also I'm not contributing to the conglomerate that is Amazon that seems to be taking over the world. It's a teeny thing, but we can make a difference, can't we?
Right, who's ready for a great big historical adventure?
I am.
It is fair to say that this country has become renowned for its stately homes, probably thanks to programmes like Downton Abbey. But the question is, where did they come from? Why are they so big? And how did those buildings, which are so big and grand, actually inspire all the houses, this house that we're sat in, probably the house that you're sat in, how did they end up inspiring the houses and the world that we live in today? This is the story, actually, of the English Republic, when we threw out our monarchy and we had a commander-in-chief. Would you believe it? In today's episode, you will meet the first commander-in-chief of the English Republic. This is the story of the English Republic, and the English Republic, it led to and it kicked off the stately era. So let's shut up and get on with the show. And crumbs, I do hope you enjoy it.
You will.
Welcome to modern Britain. These are scenes many of us will know all too well. The question is, how did we get here?
Society did not arrive here by chance. If we look back through history, we can pinpoint moments where decisions were made, often by the smallest demographic of people, that led us to a point where the modern world would thrive.
King Alfred the Great defeated the Vikings in the 9th century. The castle's arrival in the 11th century. The dissolution of the monasteries in the 16th century.
But there's just one event that set Britain on course to where she stands today.
That event brought about the birth of modern journalism. It inspired the construction of a navy which would in time deliver an empire, but also win a world war. And most importantly, it gave the country a government and a monarchy which remains to this day.
But it starts at a time when we had no monarchy at all. This is the story of the English Republic, an earth-shattering period in history which saw the end of the castle and the end of all powerful kings and queens. This was the first chapter of the modern world that we all now live in, and it was set against an architectural revolution, one that would deliver the homes that the new people in charge would live in. Welcome to Britain, the stately era. That is Harewood Castle, and it's set in the heart of West Yorkshire. It is, of course, a ruin, but for 500 years it was not. It was built in the 12th century by the Dandelion family, lords of the Harewood estate. And this really was the centre of life here. It's mentioned in the Domesday Book, written by William the Conqueror after he arrived here. And it must have been already an established settlement, and at that time it was known as Herewooda. As William and his Norman knights arrived in their conquered kingdom, they found estates just like this, and they needed to control the population, so they built castles just like that to tame and to control, thus hopefully giving them a strong and stable kingdom. And they didn't just do that here, they also did it in estates all across England. This was the era of the castle.
But then, in the space of a year, all that was gone. Fueled by the fires of the English Civil War, the castles were destroyed, and the men who lived in them were either killed, driven out of the country, or if they paid a hefty tax, forced into retirement on their estates.
Britain had become a blank canvas. The question was, how would it now be run? From the government to the religion, for the first time in 800 years, a new course was going to be charted, and there was no monarch leading the way. The question was, how did this happen? How did a country so fiercely loyal to its royal family depose of its monarchy so abruptly and so brutally? The answer was really quite simple.
It was a deeply religious time, when natural disasters were considered acts of God for misdeeds, and in the final years of King Charles I's reign, plague was raging through the land. This drove the common man and woman to look for a solution wherever they could find it. This situation was manipulated by some quick-thinking members of the royal court, who between them managed to bring the king to trial. The king was incredibly naive, operating in a surprisingly modern and progressive way that the world just wasn't ready for. With his trial rigged to find him guilty no matter what, the deed was now done.
The king was dead, and a republic was born. In a heartbeat, everything changed, even the year. In the year following King Charles's execution, instead of it being called what it had been called all through history, it was changed to the first year of freedom by God's blessing restored. The second year after the death of King Charles was called the second year of freedom by God's blessing restored. These were wordy times, weren't they? In this series, we're going to chart the course of this ill-fated republic. Each episode will tell the stories of the men and women who shaped this fascinating time, and we'll also visit some of the houses that they lived in.
Because the landscape of the country would now be transformed. Whilst England had once been a castle nation, Britain would now become littered with stately homes. But where does our story start?
It's here, actually. We've travelled 20 miles northwest of Harewood, and we're walking through the beautiful North Yorkshire village of Bilborough. We're actually making our way to its wonderful parish church, which is just up here. It's the lovely church of St James's. Now, it turns out that I know this landscape rather well, because for the first 20 years of my life, I lived in a house about 1.5 miles in that direction. In fact, every morning when I was going to secondary school, so for about 6 years, no, more than that, because my primary school also, the bus came through. So for my whole school life, my school bus came right past this church. And little did I know that one of the most important men in the history of Great Britain and his wife Anne are buried inside that church.
And this is him. Meet Thomas Fairfax and his wife Anne. He is, in my opinion, the forgotten man of British history. He ushered in the start of the English Republic and ended the time of the castle, when he commanded the army that defeated the King of England. In the years that followed, this same man would bring that republic to an end and empower the stately era.
And he's buried right here. If we're looking for the character who bookends this amazing story, it is without doubt Thomas Fairfax. He lived through the end of the age of the castles, and he actually retired to a stately home just a stone's throw from here, which is how he ended up being buried here. And if you're wondering how a man at the centre of English power in the 17th century is buried so far from London, it's because Thomas's hometown is just 6 miles away from here, and it is, of course, the historic city of York. So the stage is set for our story. And this is a place which some of the characters in our story would have known well, because we're walking through Minster Gardens, set right behind York Minster in York.
Once the site of the Roman fort of Eboracum and the place where Emperor Constantine the Great was crowned emperor, favourite spot of Henry VIII in his royal progress of 1541, and now 100 years later, it was Thomas Fairfax who paced these pathways with much on his mind.
Far away from here in London, there was a problem. Whipped up by the hysteria of the situation, the Houses of Parliament had taken things too far. Thomas Fairfax had never wanted the king to be executed. All he wanted was for him to stop and listen. But now the deed was done, the king was dead, and the problem was no one had bothered to think what should happen next.
For 80 days, Thomas Fairfax was the Republic's first commander-in-chief, but it was a job he didn't want. Thomas was a military man, not a politician, so it was decided the Republic would be ruled by a group of men selected by Parliament, called the Council of State. But the Republic needed a leader, and no one wanted to take the job. After a month of meetings, a Lord President of the Council was selected. Thomas Fairfax stepped down, and John Bradshaw, an unassuming country lawyer from Cheshire, became in essence King of England. It was a controversial choice, as he had no governmental experience whatsoever. And John Bradshaw had a history. He'd sat on the jury which had convicted and executed King Charles, so the public hated him. Right at this moment, as the year 1649 really got going, Britain had the potential to be something new and exciting. The old ways were gone, and no one had bothered to think about what the new ways might be. So a community in Surrey stepped up with an answer, and it was a true utopian vision.
What we have to remember is in this moment, there was a huge amount of displaced and suffering people all across the country that would in time become Great Britain. And Gerard Winstanley was one of them. In 1638, he'd been apprenticed to a tailor in London. And in 1639, he'd married a lady called Susan, and life was looking really good. In the years prior to the Civil War, he developed quite the business. But then, as the Civil War erupted, his business, along with thousands of others like it, was disrupted. And in time, he went bankrupt. So with no job in the city and no chance of a job, he moved out of London into the country looking for work.
He found it in the fields of Surrey, where for the next 8 years he would work as a cowherd, quite the come down from the city tailor. Now, with the war over, Gerard decided to take a chance on a new life. He believed the country needed to be returned to the people. So on the 1st of April 1649, he led a group of men onto St George's Hill in Surrey, where they started digging. The men called themselves the True Levellers, and they believed that one group of mankind should not rule over another, and that everyone should own everything. At St George's Hill, they set their example, farming any unused common land that they could find. It's not surprising that other communities full of people down on their luck soon signed up to the ways of the True Levellers.
The country was on the cusp of something revolutionary. There was little leadership coming from the Council of State in those first weeks of what would become known as the Commonwealth of England. And so this movement picked up speed fast, and you get a real idea of how serious the True Levellers were taken by what happened next.
Gerard Winstanley was taken from his utopian paradise back to London for an audience with the Council of State, where he was questioned about his intentions. He told them the True Levellers believed no one should own a thing and that every man should be equal. He said he believed the movement would grow. Whilst this was a land without a king, the new men at the top suddenly felt rather protective of their achievements, and something would have to be done about it.
And so the great general Thomas Fairfax was called for. He would make a decision on these True Levellers, now cheekily known as the Diggers. And he would make a decision if they would continue or if they would end. This actually would end up being a decision which would have a huge effect on the future of this new English Commonwealth. What would happen? We'll find out later on in the show. So thank you so much for watching this first half, and I'll see you later with more Britain, the stately era.
Oh my goodness. I mean, look, I have to say, you've been an absolute trooper, carrying the baton.
Really?
These first 4 episodes of the series.
Yes.
But life is about balance.
Yes.
And here at the Bakery Bears, we've always had the balance.
Your turn now.
We've always had the balance of the passing of the baton between the episodes.
Yeah.
And now the baton has been passed. And at the end of today, I shall pass it back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. That's okay.
Do you remember?
Look forward to dying the next sock yarn.
Did you do relays?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember you had to run
Your
along
arm, but,
like that, and then the other one you had to.
Traumatised over PE lessons at school. Still not over it.
Yes. It's been wonderful these first few weeks with My Perfect Socks, but now balance has returned to the force and we're off for our brand new adventure. And of course, what's so exciting about this year is that we're having 2 historical adventures, but we'll find out more about that as the year goes on. The first one, though, is now underway, and what a wonderful start. So many locations. Did you see that castle? You know, a lovely nod to last year's series. And I got so excited when I found that castle. I had to walk down the steepest path in history to get to it.
I don't know if this is coming across on camera, but this is one of the steepest supposed country lanes, because look at the walls that I've ever walked down. I am like, I must be, oh my goodness, leaving at like 45 degrees. I can barely move, and I'm quite fit. At least I thought I was. Oh my goodness. Just want to get back to the car now.
I didn't realise it was quite so hilly around there.
Neither did I. It's just bonkers. But just spectacular. What a wonderful start.
Brilliant.
And so many questions. And we've not even visited our first proper house yet. That comes in part 2. And it's a corker hidden away on a back
It really is
street.
hidden away. I didn't even know it was there. I walked past it a million times.
Proper medieval manor house. And when we visit this wonderful place, Barley Hall it's called, we're going to visit it in part 2, and we're going to find out the link to a historical peoples that I think you'll be surprised at. But that's all to come later. And of course, Gerard Winstanley, 2 of his diggers, poor fella goes bankrupt, heads out into the country, and then, I mean, you know, it's such
a brilliant story, let's call it, I think.
Well, what an interesting time, you know? And it's sort of cool to think that had that not happened, then the houses we live in today would not look like what they look like. Because it was that happening that launched the stately era, and the stately era led to us all having doors like we have them, and rooms like we have them, and layouts like we have them. But we'll discover all this as the series goes on.
So
It's
interesting.
Cool. Yeah. There's a magpie.
One little magpie, where's the other one? I'm not really
stop
superstitious, but gosh, did you see him jump and hop?
I did not.
He was very speedy.
I missed that. Look,
Not superstitious.
part 2 coming later on in the show. Right now, it's time for Kay to say,
Dan Jones.
Yes?
What's off your needles?
what was
off? Because we've shown this before.
But it's ages ago.
It's ages ago.
Now it's time for the pattern to be released.
Yes. Oh, that cat's just gone to chase the magpie. It won't catch it.
It's like Sylvester. Yes, I knitted this. Kay designed this for me after I fell in love with Jane Austen, and I am completely in love with Jane Austen. I've only loved 2 women in my life. One of them is Jane Austen, and the other one is Kay.
I'm glad
In case you didn't realise.
In case you didn't realise.
And yes, she designed this for me. She also made me a bag, which I've not got. It's got.
Have you not got it here?
My Let Lopi's in it.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
I
got
made him a bag with some Pemberley fabric.
with a make haste tag on it.
Yeah.
From my favourite character.
Yeah, I embroidered him a heart, and I embroidered on it, make haste.
Because he's my favourite
Because
character.
that's your favourite line, isn't it?
Yes. It's absolutely brilliant. But
So this is the Pemberley cowl.
It's a stupendous knit.
Yeah.
So what are the... So the top is...
So these 3 colourwork sections, it repeats on the other side,
Yeah.
but the first one here,
Yeah.
these little crosses, this depicts Lizzie's necklace, because she wears a
Listen to
lot
me.
through the series. We're talking, of course, about the 1995 production
Pride and Prejudice.
of Pride and Prejudice. That's the only one we ever speak about.
P&P.
The other ones don't exist.
P&P included.
Yeah. So, yeah, she wears this tiny little delicate cross around her neck.
Who wouldn't remember?
Yeah. So that depicts Lizzie's necklace. We then move on to this ivy pattern, and this is the prettiest sort of wilderness at one end of your lawn.
And
So this is what this depicts.
pause for thought. Within the Stately Era series,
Oh, yeah.
we will be discovering that is a thing.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a line.
I thought it was just a line from the book.
It is
It's
not. This was a part of Gardens
Yes.
developed by Capability Brown.
Called Wilderness. How amazing.
I know.
So yeah, that's the ivy section. And then the centre section is snow over Pemberley. Because I designed this for Dan for his birthday, which was October, but I knew he'd been knitting it through the winter.
Can I just say, this could not be a better time that this pattern was released. Pemberley?
Pemberley, yes. Stately home,
era?
yes.
Wilderness? I mean...
It was all not planned.
It wasn't planned. That's called fate.
So, yeah, and Dan wanted something a bit more meaty in terms of colour work, you know, and this is what I came up with.
Meaty.
And actually, I think the trickiest section is the ivy, because you've got
tricky.
big long runs of one colour, so you have to carry your yarn. I think he did a great job.
Yeah, that's diplomatic, yeah, well said.
But, you know, I think it's brilliant practice. The
I'll do better
snowflakes
next
look amazing.
Thanks very much.
And then you repeat it again at the bottom. So it's fingering weight. This was knit with Regia Merino Yak in these two colours. And in the pattern, actually, I've said when you're choosing your yarn, it's fingering weight, you know, but I've recommended that you find one that's a bit more woolly. So this is brilliant. Regia Merino Yak. Also something like Knit Pick Stroll, I think, would be good, because that is a little bit more plump and not woolly as such, but it's got a bit more body, I would say. And then also Sheepy's Metropolis, I think, would be good. That's definitely got a bit more grip. Things like, I mean, it's got silk in it. I don't know, but I feel like the Eden Cottage Milburn 4-ply might be another good one, because it's BFL silk, but I've knit with that one, and I think that might be a good one. So, you know, when you're choosing your yarns, just be a bit mindful to choose something that you think will be good for colour work, you know, that's got that bit plumper. Don't use like a 75-25 fingering weight sock yarn. It's a bit too smooth for colour work, I would say.
And this is available it's available free.
Yep.
To our gold and platinum patrons.
Yes.
Because we would not be here without our patrons.
Absolutely.
Our patrons have inspired the stately era. They have inspired the perfect socks. They have inspired
Everything.
the Pemberley cowl.
Everything
They've
we do.
inspired my shirt, my trousers.
Well, you know, absolutely everything we do is inspired by our patrons.
We are here, you know, we set out with 10 years ago in April, and you know we'll be you know making a bit of a thing of it in April, and we set out with a plan. We've never increased our prices to our patrons. We have never had advertising and never will.
No.
And I think we've really shown that this model of, oh yes, product placement here, advertising here, you know, this episode is sponsored by here.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this way. No. We can have honest and true broadcasting.
Listen to Dan's on his soapbox.
It's true though.
But yeah, that we're just trying to do what we
believe in,
what we believe in,
and what we think is right.
Yeah, you know, everybody goes their own way, and no criticising from us at all.
No.
But you know, this is the path that we've chosen and that we are happy promoting, let's say.
Yeah, well, we've shown that it works.
It certainly works for us. So if it works for us, then it could absolutely work for other people. But you do
these
have
streaming
to...
services. These streaming services where you pay for the service and then they advertise to you as well.
Then they advertise as well. We're talking about big street.
What are we doing, people?
Big conglomerates. You know, they're just trying to squeeze every penny out of you, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know. But anyway,
That's
a general world rant.
Yeah, well, but you know, the shining light is here.
Yes.
With my shirt and my trousers.
So,
Hey Jones, what's off your needle?
So I don't have anything knitted finished this time because we were away and blah blah, you know, whatever. But what I have been doing lately, I'm working on, and our patrons know what the theme is now for Summer of Stitching because we announced it on our pop show that we just did last Sunday. But part of the Summer of Stitching this year, there's going to be a little slow stitching project to sort of round off the summer and to adorn, let's say, another thing that we will have done. So because I was sort of thinking about how I was going to do that, I've been making several things which have been sort of slow stitched. And when I say slow stitching, if you don't know what that is, it's like hand stitching And it can be, I suppose, it can be embroidery, but it's just basically anything that you're making with your hands using a needle and thread and a bit of fabric and just taking your time with. So I've made a few things before. I made a bookmark for Bryony a few years ago, and I absolutely love this bookmark. And this is sort of similar, but not quite the same. So I made another bookmark, and this is quite unfinished. It's not in its sort of finished form. It was more about practicing what I was going to be doing. So this is the sort of slow, scrappy sort of stitching things I've been doing. So this is just tiny bits of fabric that I've patchworked onto another piece of fabric, and I've put some stitches on top. I've done loads of French knots because I love French knots. There's a flower up here somewhere which is French knots, and then you stitch all the way around with different stitches. I put a D down here, and I just backed this one in felt and just went around the edge. It's a very, like I say, it's unfinished, but it is perfectly serviceable, and I'm using this as a bookmark. But these are the sorts of things that I've been working on. And it's not a bookmark that we'll be doing in the summer. It's something else, and the technique is not quite the same as this. But I guess I just wanted to show it to you and just say, if you've never tried something like this, you don't need any knowledge, right? I came from a point of zero knowledge. If you want to, you can go on YouTube and look up a few things. There's slow stitching tutorials everywhere. You can pick up an embroidery stitches book if you want to learn some basic stitches. But basically, just find a few bits of fabric, find some embroidery thread and a needle, and just start playing around, placing bits of fabric and decorating them. And it's so fun, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And I think it's because it's a different thing to knitting. It's something new, and, the movements are all different, so it gives your hands a bit of a rest from that same movement with knitting. And I've just really enjoyed it, and I can't wait until the summer to do the thing in the summer, because it's really sweet and cool, and it's something I just made up, and I gave it a name, and I just really, really love it. So I just wanted to say, if you've never tried a bit of slow stitching, I would really recommend it. It's, again, that mindful thing. And when I've been doing this, Dan introduced me to this thing on your iPhone. I don't know what it's called. It's like a background music thing. And there's several different ones you can choose from. And
it's ambient sounds. I mentioned it, actually. I mentioned it an episode or two ago, and I put a link in the thread as to how you turn it on.
Right, okay. And I like the one that's like a crackling fire or a bubbling stream. And I've had that kind of in my ears and been stitching away and just choosing little bits of fabric and cutting little bits out and doing French knots. And it's really lovely. So if you've never tried it, I would recommend just having a go. Yeah.
Right, the cat is back from chasing the magpie.
It is.
And that means it's time to get back for more Britain, the stately era.
Welcome back, everyone, to Minster Gardens, set in the heart of York. This is, of course, a place which was loved by the great and the good right the way through history. It is summer in the first year of freedom by God's blessing restored. That is a mouthful, and I got it right. 1649 to you and me. And Thomas Fairfax has been sent to the south of England to investigate the true levellers, who have made it their mission to ensure that the spoils of civil war would be shared with everyone.
Now, the new ruling class were led by John Bradshaw, the Republic's king in all but name. Thomas Fairfax was commander of the army, and his second in command was an up-and-coming face who was an MP and a soldier. His name was Oliver Cromwell. After ousting the king and his royalist supporters, these new movers and shakers needed somewhere to live.
It wouldn't be in castles, because they represented the old monarchy, the old ways. And the majority of them had actually been destroyed anyway during the Civil War. In this period of history, the people who were going to govern the country, They wanted a new place to live, and they found it in a brand new type of house. This was the start of the stately era. When we imagine the quintessential English stately home, I would guess that this is what most of us would think of. This is Harewood House in West Yorkshire, which we'll be visiting later in the series. Houses like this were born from the brave new world that appeared after the Civil War. But they didn't just appear from nowhere. Like the castle before them, these fantastic pieces of architecture have a backstory, and as this series unfolds, we're going to discover it. As we look at these spectacular buildings today, it's easy to be astounded at their size. We must remember, though, that when these buildings were in their golden era, they had to be large. The lord of the manor had historically given a bed to often hundreds of people within their household. As the years passed, things began to change. That staff changed from soldiers, tanners and blacksmiths to butlers, footmen and maids. But the stately home was at the centre of its community, many actually being built in its geographical centre. Their door was always open to their community and to potential visitors. To start a journey through the history of the English country house, we must turn the clock back 700 years to about the year 1325, when England was still a castle nation. Owners of castles had vast estates covering huge geographical areas, and wherever they had regular business, they needed a house. This type of house was usually constructed using local materials and local craftsmen. The common budding aristocrat would have constructed his home using methods passed down generations. The only concession to fashion was the woodwork around the windows and doors and the style of the timber framing. Now we're going to visit some spectacular fully formed stately homes in this series, but our destination today was very much its precursor. Already 300 years old, when Thomas Fairfax was considering the future of the diggers at St George's Hill, our destination today was the basis for all that followed. It's called Barley Hall, and I can't wait to have an explore. Barley Hall was constructed by the monks of Nostell Priory in 1360 at the height of the power of the English monastery. It represents perfectly the type of high-status manor house that would have been in the portfolio of many of the English aristocracy. By 1360, the country was becoming much less violent, and medieval lords grew tired of living in drafty castles. Houses like this were the answer they were looking for. These men and their families were used to living in castles, so rooms pioneered in the castle now transitioned into these new domestic dwellings. This is the parlour. It would in time become the drawing room. And it's worth remembering the rustic nature of this space as the series continues.
It's fascinating to see the first hints too at the life below stairs. This is the buttery, which was overseen by the butler. It was used to store wine and beer in butts. Next door we find the pantry, overseen by a long-forgotten servant, the pantler. Bread was a staple in the Middle Ages, and this is where it was stored and prepared. But just like the castle, life here revolved around this room, the Great Hall. When Barley Hall was first built, the household ate and slept here. But this approach to life wasn't new. It had been established by the Vikings when they arrived in England in the 9th century.
So whilst what we're looking at would become the English stately home in time, the true ancestor to all this, and a life focused around a great hall, was the Viking longhouse.
It was pioneered by the peoples of Scandinavia in the 6th century. They're known to us today as Vikings. These communities grew up around large wooden halls, often upturned ship hulls. The whole population ate, drank and celebrated together in their longhouse. The community lived and died in support of that hall. It was literally the heart of their community. This was the seed that would grow into the workings of the English stately home.
And it all started in buildings just like this. Once they would have stood all over the country, and thankfully a few do remain for us to explore because they're really fascinating.
It was the Tudor period that set the stage for the rise of the English stately home. After Henry VIII broke up the monasteries, wealthy families across the country purchased vast monastic estates. This house passed from the ownership of the monks of Nostell Priory into the hands of the Lord Mayor of York. That was the moment the house was enlarged with many of the domestic rooms we see today, like this great chamber. It was the grandest private room in the house. It was a combination of bedroom, study and private dining room for the master of the house. The scale of the room, rising through 2 stories, tells us that it was built to impress. Up until this moment in history, the richest, most beautiful made buildings were religious. Now in Protestant Britain, that tradition began to change.
The population of the country no longer believed that they were destined for purgatory if they did not invest in their church. From now on, the investment of pretty much every private individual in the country would go first and foremost into their home. So we've established in our visit to Barley Hall that the Viking longhouse was instrumental in the development of the British stately home. And whilst they might seem light years away from the modern city of York, there's still an echo in the city that links us straight to them.
To uncover that link, we need to understand the roots of the city of York. So, it was founded by the Romans in 71 AD and they called it Iberacum. After the Romans left, the Saxons moved in, and they knew the city as Eforwic. But on the 1st of November 886, Viking Ivar the Boneless, at the head of a great army, conquered much of the north of England. He made his capital here at Eforwic. because they enlarged the city hugely, creating many of the streets that remain to this day, they renamed the city Jorvik. As the generations passed, Jorvik became York.
And what does every Viking community need at its heart? It was, of course, a longhouse, and that's exactly what once stood right here. The entrance would have been right behind me. Now, in time, that longhouse became the home of the King of Northumbria. And this place actually became known as King's Square because it was the home of the King of Northumbria. And that name lives on to this day. But we have a story to continue, don't we? The year is 1649 and the country has no real leader apart from John Bradshaw, a provincial lawyer from Cheshire. The diggers have us on the cusp of potentially no one owning anything. So how will their story pan out? Son of York, Thomas Fairfax, is on his way to find out.
Thomas Fairfax arrived in Surrey to meet the diggers in the summer of 1649. They must have created something wonderful to see, because whilst Fairfax did not agree with their views, history tells us that they earned his respect. The same could not be said of the Republic's army, which Thomas still led. Known as the New Model Army, they'd fought hard to defeat the Royalists who had supported the old King Charles. They were not about to give up the spoils of war. So they attacked the diggers, killing one of them. A court case began, but the diggers refused to pay for a solicitor, and so it was they who ended up in prison. By the time they were released, their plantation at St George's Hill in Surrey was destroyed, and whilst they did start a new one, public opinion had turned. Their leader, Gerard Winstanley, knew they had no future, and that was the end of the diggers. But he made a chilling prediction to the English Republic's Council. He told them they would fall like a great tree with a rotten root. Winstanley could not have known how right he would prove to be. It had taken all of 1649 to gain complete control of England, and now whilst this was done, the same could not be said of Scotland. They declared the executed king's son Charles their new king. In Ireland, a confederation formed with the intention to take control of their island. The tide was turning fast against the new republic. In June 1650, King Charles II arrived in Scotland to take up his role as monarch. It had been the first time he'd set foot in his kingdom since the execution of his father. John Bradshaw and his ruling council were extremely concerned at this turn of events, so they called for Thomas Fairfax to lead the charge against their enemies and to defend them. The question was, would he do it?
The answer was no. Fairfax had never wanted the king dispensing with in the first place, and now their decision to attack a sovereign state, Scotland in this case, was a step too far. So he took the pretty momentous decision to retire from public life, back here to York with his beloved wife Anne. Sadly for England, that left a void at the top of the hierarchy of the army, and it was taken by a man who has gone down in history as really quite infamous.
This is who it was. His name is Oliver Cromwell. He was a descendant of Thomas Cromwell, who had masterminded the destruction of the monasteries with Henry VIII, but Oliver had gone one better. Driven by fervent religious beliefs, it was he who had manipulated the Houses of Parliament into executing their king. He already had shown himself to be merciless and brutal on the battlefields of the Civil War. With Thomas Fairfax now returning to Bilborough, it was to him that John Bradshaw and the Republic turned.
Oliver Cromwell's star was officially on the rise. Where would it take him? We're going to find out next time. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more Britain, the Stately Era. Welcome everyone to Benningborough Hall, the next destination in our exploration of the English stately home. Who would live in these spectacular buildings? Men like Oliver Cromwell. But to do that, he would have to rise to the very top of the English Commonwealth. And that is exactly what was about to happen.
Can you believe it? The inspiration for the English stately home is the Viking Longhouse.
Viking Longhouse.
It's the first inspiration. There are two big inspirations, second one coming next time. But Barley Hall, what a cool place.
It is a cool place.
How amazing to see those first sort of hints at the below stairs with the buttery and the pantry. But then also, you get into that big hall and you always find a big space within a stately home. Normally it's going to be something like the dining room or
long gallery.
Or the entrance hall, of course, that we're going to see in all the places that we go to. It's always big and spectacular. And that all stems from, and it's true, isn't it? Human beings have a tendency to follow what they've done. If this is the way we've done things, then it's what we're used to. So we're going to carry on doing that. And it's exactly that. It was an absolute, I had no idea.
No, it's really great, and if you find yourself in York and it starts to rain and you're like, oh, what are we going to do? And you need to kill an hour or something, I would definitely recommend it. If you've got kids as well, I think they would love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
And there's things for children to do in there as well. They've got this room upstairs where there was some children doing little activities, sort of centred around that, the whole theme of it. It was definitely worth a little visit.
And spectacular new music, I'm sure you'll agree, from my wonderful brother Dom.
Yes, isn't it wonderful?
Who has his next drum lesson on Saturday.
Oh, Saturday?
Yes.
Right.
So, yes, the series is underway. It's going to be amazing. You've got a hint at some of the places that we're going to be going to in that episode. And we really do. It's spectacular, specifically episode 3. But then episode 4 also, it just keeps on going. It's marvellous. Because I'll shut up. Episode 5, our daughter Bryony did pretty much all the filming, and she was just spectacular.
She helped out.
So that was really cool. So
she loved it.
Lots to look forward to. Next time, Kay's back with more My Perfect Socks, and Britain the Stately Era returns on the 28th of March.
Wow.
Right now, it's time for the Endy Bits. Kay's bought some yarn.
I've got a couple of skeins of yarn.
Both from Pixie yarn, of course.
No Pixie yarn this time, but maybe next time. No.
We established last time that you only need to say Pixie yarn. People know.
I will carry on saying Pixie yarn because that's what I think it should be.
And tomorrow we're going for lunch at the La Trattoria.
Yeah.
That's what Kay said.
It's the Sopranos. Is it the Sopranos?
No. It is.
Mickey Blue Eyes.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. I've got a couple of skeins of yarn. So the first one actually is to knit Dan some socks, and I must get these on the needles, although... Anyway, Dan's been wearing, the past couple of months, he's been wearing all of his thicker socks, which is weird because historically you didn't really wear those, did you, through the day? But he's really been wearing them. So you've got, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 pairs that are thicker that I knit years ago. I haven't knit any thicker socks for him in years. And I just thought, I really need to knit some thicker socks. The ones he's got on, actually, you can't get the yarn anymore, and they're my favourites. The ones he's got on, I used a yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners, and it was an Aran weight. I forget the name of it, but it was Aran weight, and it was self-patterning, and it was absolutely brilliant. But you can't get it anymore, it's discontinued, and I searched around for it and couldn't find it anywhere. So I also knit him a pair using Opal. So I thought I'll get him a ball of Opal. So this is Opal 8 ply, which I'm guessing is sort of like a worsted weight. It comes in, this skein is 150 grams, and you get 320 metres. So I got in this one, which is lovely. It's purples and blues and a bit of green and a cream. So it's Opal Winter Son, extra large 8 ply it's called, and I think they're about $14.99, I think. And this particular colourway is called Winter Duft, and I translated this yesterday and it said Winter Scent, which is really nice. And there's a picture of this lovely winter forest is the inspiration. So I'm going to get these on the needles, I think. And I will definitely use double points because I like knitting socks double points when it's a thicker yarn, I discovered. So this will be nice. So I got that one to knit socks for Dan. And then I also ordered a skein from Dandelion and Dogwood, which came the other day. And I saw this colourway, and it was the name, I think, and then one of the particular shades I really love. And it's called He's Her Lobster. And I got it on the fairy sock, which is the sparkle. So you get 100 grams and then 2 minis in 2 of the colours. So it's a mixture of like this gorgeous tangerine orange, peachy orange, pink, but then where it's covered over, I'm being careful because it's staples, there's like a purple, which is lovely. And talking of staples, right, I have to mention, so yeah, these one, it is stapled. And the staples are the other way around, but I've had skeins, this one, for example, is an older one, and the staples are not that way around. The rough bit of the staple is next to the yarn. So my opinion on staples and ball bands is that they shouldn't be there. This is just my personal opinion. I don't think staples should be going anywhere near yarn, because even though the snaggy bit is on the outside, there's still a chance, because they're right on the edge of the ball band, there's still a chance that your yarn's going to snag on that. So before I even try to get the yarn out of here, I'm going to remove the staples completely. But I just don't think staples should be used with yarn. I realise that it's used because it's quick. I'm presuming that's the reason why, you know, it's just staple and it's quick. But I prefer it. This, you know, this sticker here with the details on could go over the gap and it could stick it down. I don't know why that's not been done. But anyway, I just needed to have a little bit of a rant about staples and yarn. Shouldn't be there. All that being said, I think this is a beautiful skein and we'll make some lovely socks. So I look forward to doing that.
Cool. So the Pemberley Cowl is coming out tomorrow, or it's out already if it's after the 1st of March. Can you believe it? Kay's producing a very special design diary which will come out the day before it's released. So if it's after the 1st of March, that design diary will be there if you want to find out the story behind how this was created. I'm back next week with another of my... But I postponed my monthly garment knitting show, the Self-Contained Knitter it's called, and the reason being is I've literally been like so getting ready this show.
Yeah.
So it's back next week, so I'll inevitably be talking a little bit about, bringing the show to bear that you've just watched, but then also showing you all the progress on all my garments and all of that. We've got a new Knitability coming out really soon. Jen is on to me for an article ASAP, so that'll be coming out within the next couple of weeks. So Knitability is our magazine, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks
everybody.
with a show featuring more of Kay and my perfect socks.
Yes.
We'll see you then.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl you'll want to wear. So sit yourself right down and watch Dan and Kay, the bakery